folks. Welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show. On assignment here in Los Angeles, Highland Park, more specifically. Joined today by legendary studio musician Josh Sonntag. Welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thanks, man. Thanks for coming out.
How have you learned to incorporate humor in your playing? Especially when, can you talk about a time in the studio when I think a lot of people we're in a very chops-driven time.
Right.
But humor is key. And I'm
Right.
curious you could talk a little bit about your evolution and how you incorporated humor in your playing.
Well, I mean, it's all situational, right? I mean, if there is a time when it's called for, I think it's more about the feeling more than trying to incorporate it into the notes. You don't want to try to be funny by doing some wacky kind of wah-wah shtick or something like that. What I think you want to do is just kind of get into a very happy, friendly, loose kind of place, and it's more about the interplay. Maybe the bass player did something that triggered you, and you're kind of answering them. It's kind of like an inside joke kind of thing, but that comes out in the music and it comes out in the vibe, and I think that's really where you get into that kind of situation.
I mean, can you talk realistically about when you first, how you came into the studio scene, and how often do you play with cats live in the studio?
Well, that's a great question, man. Most records aren't done that way anymore, and it's kind of a drag. When I do get to do it, it's a super, super treat. Most of the time, what you end up getting is, you do, the drums are laid down, everything's done, and you're just kind of okay, cool, let's call the guitar player in to do his kind of, his part, or parts, because it's usually a ton of parts. But yeah, I think the thing that got me into, I mean, I've been playing since I was 16, but in LA, it's one of the hardest spots to break into any kind of regular working situation as a studio musician. I mean, there's a lot of work.
It's a deep bench, right? I mean, it's just like New York. It's a deep bench. Yeah.
It's just you have to find the people that you connect with, and that's really what it boils down to. I had some friends that through our friend relationships, not even music relationships, you start oh, what do you do, and it's turns out this guy that was a buddy of ours sharing a rehearsal space with, he worked with one of the top Latin producers around, Gustavo Santaolalla, and I was actually producing this cat, and they said, hey man, we like this cat you're producing, do you want to we're gonna produce his album, do you want to come and play guitar on it? And that was it, and that was all just through friendship. It wasn't any kind of auditions or because that kind of stuff, it's when music gets competitive like that, I think you lose a lot of the vibe.
Have you been in a situation where there's been a lot of wanking going on, so to speak? And can
yeah.
you, I mean, and talk about...
I played in jam bands before.
Yeah, no, I mean, we'll talk about that,
Yeah.
because I think it's fascinating to explore. There's nothing worse than wanking on the bandstand. Danny Korchmar would say that. Rick Marotta would say that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's only a certain few people that you want, you can be entertained for long times like that,
Right,
improvisationally.
right.
So, I mean, what was during those times, how would you musically get people to get off of the wank mode?
Well, I mean, so I think it's again situational. If I'm
Can you give us a personalized example?
I'll give you some pretty clear examples. When I'm playing behind a singer-songwriter, all I'm doing is worrying about adding to enhancing what they got going on. It's not about me, it's not about the drummer, it's about the song, the delivery, the mood, all of that cool stuff, right? But I do disagree with you a little bit. I think that people as human beings love to see somebody stretch out and really go to a place where they're maybe even not comfortable going, but they're just gonna do it.
You're preaching to the choir. I've been obsessed with people wanking it, and I always like to talk to musicians about that.
Yeah. So I think wanking is when you're not listening. That's wanking. But if
so how do you get cats to start in a live context? How do you get them to start listening?
Well, I mean, it all starts with the premise of what you're trying to do, right? So it's like, if you're going to like, a 3 a.m. jam in Miami Beach in, 1992, which I did a lot, it's like, if there's a really good drummer, which back in the day we had this cat, Dave Goodstein, who's an amazing drummer. And, if you got lucky enough to get called up to play with those cats, I mean, he would hit you with a fucking drumstick to let you know that you were like...
Yeah, right, right. It was clear. Yeah.
So it's like, keeping the wank down. But at the same time...
Did you work with cats that would kick people off the bandstand?
I mean...
Because that was the old school. I mean, that was people would say, get the F off the bandstand.
I think people are too nice for that these days.
They are nice about it.
Yeah. And you know what? I think being civilized about, especially about art, because... It's
to be shared and not judged. I did.
Exactly.
I did.
So I think that's more of a... that there's validity to that when somebody just comes up and they have no respect for what's going on and they have no concept of what's happening and they can't hang. Then of course you gotta show them the door politely or impolitely depending on who you are, right? But at the end of the day, what you're looking for is to share the vibe with the people who you are on stage with. And if you got ears and you are humble enough to let somebody else inform you of what's going on, and you're also, brave enough to know when you should take your moments and really get that communication going, then you're gonna do fine. And it won't turn into a wank fest. It won't turn into like Guitar Center on Saturday morning. It's like,
well, I mean, it's part of the paradigm today. Where do you feel like you grew the most on the bandstand?
Oh man, that's a great question.
I mean, are you born and raised here?
No. I was born in New York, but I grew up in Mexico. And
wow.
My parents took me to Mexico when I was 6 years old.
Puerto Vallarta? Where did you?
No, actually Cancun. Is the last place we ended up, and that's where my whole family
What was it like to live there?
It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing, and it was a great place to learn music because you got a little band together when you were like between 13 and 16. I was playing parties with my friends and stuff, but once I was 16, not because of an age thing, just that's around the age when it happened, we started playing the bars for tourists, and that'll get your chops up real quick, when you have to play a set that goes from Elvis to Metallica, and you're 16 years old and you got to learn all this music and you got to retain all this music. Like to this day I do not read on stage. I do not,
man. Get rid of the iPads, man. Sick of that shit.
I'm just about like, if I know the music, I'm gonna be comfortable. So that was the first real test, and then
Let me ask you though.
Yeah.
I mean, were you allowed? How deep a bag could you go? I mean, was it? Could you do California Dreamin' by Wes Montgomery? I mean, or was it like very like it was the because pop music's changed now. You know that.
Yeah. Again, I mean, this is going to be the name of the interview. Yeah. Situational.
That's fine. It's all situational. No, but life is situational. That's life, man.
But I mean, so like at the height of it, a regular day would be you'd wake up, you'd go play a party boat, until like 5 p.m. And then
like cocktail music kind of thing, or
no, those boats were usually like Twist and Shout, La Bamba. Maybe you'd start with like some Santana, like some Europa or something.
Oh wow!
Like when everybody's like just
getting
man,
on the boat. Tommy Coster, man.
Yeah. And then like as the drunkenness
kind of early R&B rock.
Yeah. Then you would just you get the party started, right? And then from there you'd go home, take a shower, then you'd have your lobby gig. And then you're playing like all the soft stuff and like a little bit more instrumental and a little bit more on the jazzy side, if you would. But I didn't know shit about jazz back then. But and then after that you'd play the club gig, which is like the top 40 hits, kind of like get people dancing and keep them entertained, and let the waiters come up and shoot tequila into people's mouth and all kinds of cool stuff.
And that was a way to sing for your supper.
Yeah.
I mean, can you talk about a time when you actually were playing original music for?
Man. So
I mean, was there a point in your routine where it changed from party boat to maybe and then light jazz, whatever, and then to a band where you were playing all original music?
Well, I mean, in Cancun, we never played all original. That was just, not what would get you paid. But we would sneak originals in here or there. But so I woke up one day in Cancun and realized that, like, if I kept on doing this, I was going to wake up one day and be, like, in my 60s, and that's all I did my whole life. Play the same 30 songs over and over again. And so I went to Berkeley School of Music, did some time there, and I met up with these cats, a Chilean, because I grew up in Mexico.
Dude, that's so badass. Do you know it costs $57,000 now to go to Berkeley?
Oh my God. Yeah,
I mean, for music.
It wasn't cheap then either, but it wasn't that.
What year was it?
93.
Wow, because I went to BU in '96. But anyway, Berkeley was. That's amazing. So that was a great class of cats there.
Yeah, man. And what was super cool about it was because I had all this Spanish, it was like, I look American as hell, but, I speak Spanish probably better than English. And so I started...
You can just speak Spanish the rest of the interview, man.
Yeah. Si quieres. But anyway, the cats I hooked up with, as friends, were these Latin cats. There's this dude, Joaquin Berrios from Chile, who is an amazing piano player and like opera singer, but not trained kind of vibe. And then
where's that cat? Let's get him on.
He's in Miami. I'll hook you up with him.
So you can I love this. It was all the ethnic cats you were right.
And then these two Puerto Rican dudes on rhythm section who were just insane, like bass and drums. Like they grew up on Rush, and there's this band that they love in Puerto Rico, but no one else really knows about, called Saga. And they're like, that's their thing. So when we got together, I was coming from like, the little more of the rock and roll side of things, and we ended up with a really good gumbo of just like super art rock improvisational kind of like, just throw it at the wall and see if it sticks kind of thing. And I think that's the band.
A lot of odd time signatures and things like that.
A little bit of that. More just like, song forms were like, out the window. It was like whatever we wanted to do as far as song forms. We weren't trying to be pop, or we weren't trying to like.
You play Middle East at all or anything?
I don't think we played the Middle East.
Or Cantab or one of those places?
We did a lot of parties in Boston, but we actually moved to Miami. And that's, because a drummer wanted to continue his studies at UM. He wanted to do, like, music business or something. So we did our time in Miami. Wow. And I was there for 7 years. We would play this spot called Roses. We'd play the South Beach Pub, Churchill's, and any other this coffee shop called The Grind. Got plugged into that scene. And that's where we really, like, at school, everybody's kind of, like, trying to just do the school thing. And then, the band is kind of like just kind of like to let loose and create and be in that environment. But once we were in Miami, we were doing it for real, and that's when the band just grew like crazy, man. It was a really fun band. And like back to the wanking thing, it's like we would stretch out, but there was no wanking. It was like
wanking, man.
It was all for the moment, to take the music to the place it needed to go. Yeah.
I guess it would be important for you to talk to people about, as a melodic player, how do you think new musical vocabulary is created on the bandstand? Ron Carter said it's up to the rhythm section to provide a foundation for the soloists to bring what he called their kitchen solos. Their kitchen solos. Don't be afraid. And I'm just curious about new music vocabulary. I feel like there's a homogenization of sound. In fact, that's what sells now. You don't even have to be truly an authentic artist. You can be.
So when you say new, like new as created on the spot, or new as of this time?
Modern times.
Modern times.
The last couple decades.
Okay.
It's, and so I would like you to talk about how you think, in a live setting, how new musical vocabulary is created.
So I really think that the genesis of all good melody is rhythm, and it's probably has to do a little bit with what Ron was talking about, but I think it's a little bit different. I had a situation where when I went back to Cancun in a break between semesters at Berkeley, there was this bar owner that just loved the way I played, and I wasn't even close to being there yet.
You're still not there.
Exactly, you're never there. But this cat, Gabriel Hernandez, who is like this amazing Cuban piano player, had this trio there, and this dude Herbert, who owned the bar, would be like, man, you gotta play with these cats. And I'm like, dude, I don't need to play with those cats. Those cats are like super serious guys. Like, I don't, like, what am I gonna do up there? And so we would play like easy standards, very modal, very like, where I could just throw my rock licks, but sometimes there would be changes and stuff. I realized where my melodic strength would come from would be anytime the drummer would start playing what I was playing. Whenever he was trying to have that conversation with me, that kind of like...
He was serving the song.
Yeah, and he would like make it so then it would click, and then from there I could just take off into places I never even knew I could do. And that was when I realized like it's all from rhythm, because rhythm is the most basic communication we have. And if you listen to modern music these days, it's all about the rhythm. There's not a lot of melodic information in there. Actually, there was a study done about like the last 5 years or something. It's a very this weird scale that everyone's using. It's not even a scale. It's like a permutation of notes that are the comfortable notes for people to listen to, and it's like, and
I was thinking about this today.
Yeah.
It's the quantized rhythm, and it's the need for perfection.
Yeah.
The auto. I mean, that's what David Lindley said to me the other day. The share box, they used to call it.
Yeah.
She'd sing through it, and you could fix it. And so
the share box, exactly.
I'm wondering about. So I think what I'm hearing you say is that the rhythm section, if you have a drummer that can play melodically, then you can create new music vocabulary as an instrumentalist, as a soloist.
And even a little bit deeper, it's like if you as an as a melodic instrumentalist latch on to the rhythm and make it your mission to get into the rhythm and understand the rhythm and feel the rhythm and start expanding on the rhythm, obviously your instrument also has all these notes. So the melody is going to be very firmly anchored in what the rhythm section is doing, but you're also going to have this really cool opportunity of just, stretching out on a melodic path based on what the rhythms are informing you of, if that makes sense.
Have you left your physical body on the bandstand before?
Yeah, actually, a couple of times. I when I was really young and first, had my first live experiences, like on the bandstand in Cancun, there was this singer who was like, "Man, I like the way you play. You always transcend." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" It's like. Yeah, was
that the first time that you had heard that word in that context?
Yeah, it's like you're like.
What did you think he meant?
Well, no, I
mean, that's ridiculous. That's the highest compliment you can get.
Yeah, and I was just like, because you just get lost in it, and it's the most fun, beautiful, happy place to be is when you're lost in a musical moment, and it's all coming together. But yeah, it's happened quite a few times. Lately, not as much.
Can you talk about one time that it did? Was it fatigue? What was it?
No, I think what happens is you stop. So I think there's a big problem with people leading bands that exert total control over their musicians. And I think when you do that, I understand like that what you're doing, you're trying to create an experience, a situation that is going to inform you, the artist, of what should be happening and what you really want to give your crowd. But it's also stifling to the musician.
Absolutely. No, it's a control show. It's a control freak. And
so I think when you're in moments where you feel like the music is as much yours as it is somebody else, those are the moments where you have the license to transcend, if you will. And that's when you can start leaving all of your baggage behind and just be there with the music. When you have people who are very very strict and very disciplined in what they want, and they're asking for it 24/7. Well, you're in a box at that point where you're trying to make music out of what you're getting asked to do from them. And I think, that's why the best bands ever, all the bands that I've, listened to that I love are musicians that are comfortable there. Everyone's there because of what they do, and they know that they do it well, and they're allowed to transcend. So if you're allowed to you gotta have permission for that shit. It doesn't just happen. You have to feel like in the right zone for it to happen.
The cats that I know, it's not exclusive to I believe we're all one human race, but some of those Puerto Rican cats and those cats, they love that stuff. I mean, it's different than the square white Anglo-Americana.
Well, I think it really.
And I don't want to paint. I don't want to paint with a broad brush.
Well,
I'm just saying that cat said to you every time there was full trust in that. That's what it is trust.
Yeah. So I think like I said, if you're in a band situation where you feel like you are an integral part of it, and as much of an owner of the outcome as everyone else, because that's the other thing that people don't realize about solo artists is that they're putting the onus of the whole situation on their shoulders. So if it was a great show, great, that guitar player had a moment, it was awesome, but at the end of the day, the person who owns that is the artist. But if you are, if it's a shitty show, it's like they're not going to be like, yeah, man, it was all because of the guitar player. It's like, no, like that guy sucked that night, and because it's his vibe. So, but to your point, I have dealt mostly with Latin artists in my career, because that has been kind of like my niche that I've been able to go into, and I've seen it all different ways. Like there's some people, even the same people who are super controlling one night, become super free the next night, and there's a lot of trust there, and it's a lot of trust that you're not going to fuck.
But
with
it is
their
inconsistent
thing,
though, yeah.
But it's not consistent. And then the ones that I felt where you do have the license to explore, transcending every single night, are the ones where the music is shared by everyone, and you feel like, like if I put, my, sauce on it, I'm not going to ruin the meal for the other dude, because they're all there together.
It's a gumbo. You're marinating it. I dig. I dig. How often does that happen these days for you?
Not a lot, because I don't play in a lot of bands with I don't have any projects happening with people who are where that is the vibe. I'm usually gigging with people who there's a very specific agenda of what we're trying to do, and a lot. I think another thing that is super important is transcending. In a singer-songwriter type of situation, is happens a lot more over the course of many gigs, because the unit gets a lot more comfortable and everyone finds their spot and where you're at. But if you're doing a lot of one-offs with people, you're just trying to satisfy the needs of the gig, and that doesn't mean that you're not making great music, and it doesn't mean that you're not being musical. It just means that you have your brakes on, because you don't want to play out a turn, if you will. You want to make sure that you're jiving with what everyone wants,
But you're talking about chemistry. You don't have time to build that. It's a one-off gig for the dough or whatever.
Yeah, and chemistry. Yeah.
Chemistry is key.
Yeah.
Now, going back to the out of body thing, can you talk about one time like what that? Because I mean, Billy Cobham, like he left his body at the end of a long tour with Mahavishnu, and Billy never did a drug in his life, and he would saw himself on the side of the stage. I'm curious how it manifested with you.
Whew. I don't know that it was without drugs.
Well, what? No, just because there's
one time, like that band from Miami. We did a little experiment, and we got into the rehearsal room, and we all, like, I don't know if it was shrooms or acid, but we all did something together, and that night was like a 4-hour out of body experience.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about it. I mean, that's where the rubber meets the road. I mean, you were all having a trip together on the stage.
Yeah, it wasn't even on the stage. It was in our rehearsal room, lights out. And we came up with 6 or 7 jams that turned into like amazing songs that night. But it was just more about like the act of uninhibited creation, and really just trying to push the limit of what we could call music in that moment, you know. And it was fun. It was a great exercise, and I think that informed a lot of our live playing, you know, when we weren't, you know, doing drugs, and we were on the bandstand in front of people. That informed us, our trust, our, you know, and our eagerness to really get to those plateaus, you know.
Did you record the session?
Yeah, we recorded it. I don't know who has the tapes, but we definitely, like I said, we were able to extract some good.
I mean, DiMeola, the tape that Chick Corea heard to get him into Return to Forever, he was on acid. When he listens back to that, he goes, "It doesn't even sound like me."
Yeah.
Was it like that for you too? I mean, was it a different? I mean, what was it like when you listened back straight?
Well, I mean, it was just like flashbacks. You know, it's like you were just like in the room again.
Flashes, dig.
You were just like, wow, that happened. That's right. And you started getting all the feelings and the emotions that were happening because, you know, especially with psychedelics, you start going into your own kind of like
neuroses.
Yeah. You start going inside.
Inward, yeah.
You start trying to like dig as much crap from inside, and you're trying to get it out, especially in a musical situation like that. But yeah, I think the result was that we listened to these jams, and we were like, man, that was a great jam right there. That can be a great song, and we loved the place that the song came from, because it was a completely honest, uninhibited, direct to the, you know, mainline vibe. And so those songs were some of the most powerful ones we had moving forward, because they were created under those circumstances, you know, of total freedom.
Josh, how has, in your mind, I don't know what year you were, I was born in 78, but
yeah.
How do you feel that, I was also a very late bloomer when it came to like being a music fan. I still to this day feel like I'm more of a humanist than a musicologist or anything like that.
Good way to put it, yeah.
But how has the significance of music changed in Western culture?
Well, I mean, obviously it's gotten over commercialized, you know. I think when we stopped paying attention to, you know, really developing and nurturing artists, and we started becoming, you know, music as a commodity, because even in the 70s and 80s, early 90s, when there was still a record business before, you know, this whole digital explosion, which, don't get me wrong,
I dig. You're spot on. Yeah.
I love a lot.
But the cultivation of talent was gone.
And also it was just more about like the what it took for somebody to be able to consume music was a lot harder. So not only so it meant that the bar, you know, the price of admission for a musician to be able to do it had to be higher, because, hey, you know, it's like, I'm looking at this album cover. I don't even have a way of listening to it before I buy the thing. And now I'm going to buy it. I'm going to take it home. And there better be something good on there, because that was like all of the money I had for the record for that month, you know? And it's like, these days, it's just like, people don't even finish a freaking song. Even if they like it, they're just like, oh, that's a great jam. And they'll like, you know, go to the next song, because it's like they can, you know? And it's kind of a drag in that, in the way that it's consumed. And it's because of the way it's consumed greatly affects the way it's produced, which means that, you know, you have technically and sonically amazing things are happening, but content-wise and delivery-wise, you're getting a lot of stuff that's just, you know, lowest common denominator.
Has the technology superseded the humanity in music?
That I've pondered that a lot,
because you're somebody that has to find that balance. You got a ton of technology in there, and you're working your ass off.
Yeah.
But I mean, really, at this point, it's about feel.
Well, the thing is that it's how you use the tools, right?
Absolutely.
You know, like I'm not somebody, because I can't have a 16 or 24 track reel to reel in here. I could, but what a fucking pain in the ass. And like, how to, like, you know, like running it by myself, that's expensive. That's, you know, it's a whole, and you know, hats off to folks who do that. But I think it's how you use the technology, where you're coming from. Like you mentioned, you know, like auto-tune and Beat Detective and all this stuff. I think that the more time you spend on cleaning up the track, the less time you're spending on the music. And so I just want a solid performance. I want, you know, obviously you might do a comp of vocals, but you're not going to put them through, like, you're not going to fix every nuance on them. You're not going to flatten everything out. You might do a little edit on the drums, like, you know what, the section that he did over here actually fits way better with this take over there. Cool, but you're not going to go in and move every single snare and every single hi-hat, because at that point what you're doing is you're not really making music. You're making almost like a, you know, I don't know, it's kind of like a graphic design thing with your you know, with your music program. You're just like, how can I make it all neat and perfect, you know? And music lives, you know, the real music lives in the flaws, because that's the human nature in music, and that's what really communicates the emotion, you know?
Is it the strain of just the enormity and of the cost of living that people can't be in the same room at one time hitting? I mean, you're talking about taking a drum part and saying, okay, this part works better over here.
Yeah.
Meaning that not all the I mean, you listen back. I'm not being Pollyannish. I understand it's a different, but I mean.
Oh, but that was happening back in the day. They would just do it with tape. They would just have to splice it and be like, you know what, the intro.
David Spinoza. I mean,
tape.
David Spinoza hit a clam on Right Place, Wrong Time.
Right.
Arif Mardin, they kept it in.
Oh,
But
yeah.
again, you're right. In that case, it was an overdub.
Yeah, I actually read that story from your post.
Yeah, that really that was rest in peace, Dr. John.
Yeah.
But I mean, how do you find yourself having to pull yourself back in order to strike a balance, not being too meticulous?
Well, you know, I think it comes back to what you were talking about earlier. It's all budget based, not situational this time, but I guess budget.
No, we're moving into the economics. I like it. Yeah.
But you know, it's like if I'm working with an artist who has, you know, $1,000 to do a track, right? And it's like, that's like at the high end of the low end, right? Well, I'm gonna get live drums on it and stuff, but am I gonna, by the time I'm done paying the cats and booking the room to do it live, that grand and then some is gone, you know? So then it's like, what are you talking about? You're talking about pulling favors, then it's like, how many of those can you pull, right? So I think it's budget, and it's also where the artist wants to take their music, you know. If the artist is a band, then there's no other way you can do it, right? Because what is the point of being in a band and not playing at the same time when you're recording? You know, it's like, at least the basics, at least, you know, drums, bass, and guitar, punch in whatever.
Yeah, right. Throw the rhythm section together, man.
But,
you know,
but at least get that going. Scratch vocal, you know. I mean, because, like, you know, like the band. Like, could you imagine the band going in one at a time and doing their thing? It wouldn't sound anything like it sounds. You know, it's just, it wouldn't happen. And that's, you know, I think even really big bands get that. You know, modern big time bands get that. They know that they have to, if they want to have their band imprint on it, they kind of have to work in a way where everyone's kind of involved in the creation of everything, you know?
I'm going to throw out two names to you. I just want you to free associate because they're two of the most classic individuals, and we're mutual friends. First is Brent Rademacher.
Okay. Yeah, Brent's, you know, he's amazing. He's I think.
How did you connect with him?
You know, I'm, to be super honest, I'm more of a Facebook friend with him, but I'm really good friends with a lot of people we have in common.
Well, talk about that. No, you know what it is. Then the more to the point, what is that communal vibe? Because that's
Right.
that's what I've gravitated to. I live in Tucson. I'm from the East Coast.
Right.
But what is that vibe? Can you describe that Southern California vibe?
Yeah, man. I think there's a bunch of different. That's a bunch of different guys. You know, there's a bunch of different Southern.
It's like Stan
California
Getz.
vibes.
Zoot Sims used to say Stan Getz was a bunch of nice guys.
Yeah, a bunch of different nice guys.
Yeah, the bunch of but anyway, it's many. That's the point.
Yeah. So basically, like that whole like, you know, Americana, you know, maybe like a little bit country rock California kind of vibe.
Birds,
yeah, the Birds and all of that, kind of vibe. The
Burrito Brothers,
yeah,
kind of,
yeah. For a while, we had the advent of an amazing venue that is no longer, which was the Piano Bar. I don't know if you ever went to the Piano Bar.
Missed. Where was it?
Piano Bar was like in Hollywood, off of like on Selma, between, I think it was like Cahuenga and Wilcox or something like that, right in the heart of like of Hollywood, and they all of like the top dogs got there, but they played music. They didn't play like it wasn't a wank fest. It was there was a lot of like extending and transcending.
It was called a conversation.
Yeah.
There was like serious conversations going on.
But the music was like the repertoire was a very Americana, country slash. Then you had your funk guys, but it was a very like kind of like a homey kind of like groovy kind of vibe. And I think a lot of the players that are in the mix around town right now came out of that scene. I didn't really play that scene too much, but I used to go and check it out all the time, and I met a lot of cats there.
Can you talk about some of the, just even hit me to, to me, I'm just trying to continue to spread this enlightenment, because there's something going on. Brooklyn has something going on that's an East Coast thing. I mean, I know Austin is deep. New Orleans is probably the only regional hotbed, truly the only original sound maybe left in the country.
Right.
But there's something going down out here. Who are some of your mentors, I guess? Cats that were a little bit older that you wanted to go see.
Well, I mean, I don't even think they got to be older to be mentors.
Dude, I love you, dude. You're jousting right now. It's great.
Yeah, I think the vibe that if they're saying something that you want to pick up on, and you allow yourself to get your ego out of the way.
That's a big deal. Yeah.
Then you're going to learn, and if you can continue to learn, then you'll continue to grow, et cetera, right? But a guy that I love to death and who's been well, there's a bunch of dudes.
Don't block your mouth. People want to see what you're saying.
Yeah. There's a ton of dudes. I mean, there was a band.
If you don't want to mention one name because you're afraid you're going to leave people out, it's okay.
No. I can.
I don't want you to name drop if people are going to get offended.
No, I don't think anybody's going to get offended.
No, I don't think so either.
But there's this bass player cat who I've actually used on a bunch of dates. When I record, his name's Johnny Flowers. He's amazing, bassist, and he's also just a musical powerhouse. And he's he's a school jazz guy, but when he lays it down, and he can play with all the different cats, and he can
Johnny Flowers, dude, this is hit, man.
Yeah, and he makes connections with all of those dudes, right?
That's key.
There's
is that the key though? Is the key to make an impact so that all of a sudden you're connecting with all these different groups, and that's how the community? What's the glue? What's the essence?
Well, I think it's people who are on the same mission musically.
I mean, I just want to give you an example, and then you can riff on it.
Right,
I was with Fred Tackett earlier today, and he's talking about Johnny Rivers, and it escapes me now, but whoever his bass player was had like a massive heart attack, and he lived in Louisiana, and Johnny's like, he sent his doctor from L.A. to Louisiana because he didn't trust those doctors.
Right.
But it was his accompanist.
Right.
But it was like love. It was like it was like not even. It was an afterthought. And that's what I'm trying to say. What is that essence?
Well, I think the essence is are you speaking the same language musically? And I don't mean the notes. I mean how you are feeling the music and the reason for doing the music and how you want yourself to be portrayed as a musician, right? There's a ton of folks out there that can fall very easily into the me kind of vibe, but But I think when you're talking about community, it's because everybody is very generous with what they're doing with each other, and when they're playing together, they're generous towards the other people who they're playing with, right? And that creates a vibe where again, you get people comfortable and you get people speaking the same language, and that spreads very easily, right? That's how like a little vibe like the piano bar, happens, or that's how like a vibe like the Grand Ole Echo at the at the Echo with that's a whole nother cross pollinates with what used to be the piano bar scene, but it's obviously more on the Americana, like straight up kind of vibe. Then there's like a bunch of cats out in the desert. I know, like Starlight Cleaning Company, like Rachel Dean and Tim. They're like they're amazing. They're like they're super truthful, beautiful. Great vibe of people, and they they really bring that community. They have that community, and that's probably where I've made a lot of connections through being friends with them as well.
Just by being Josh Sonntag.
Yeah,
just being yourself.
Josh Sonntag, and like I said, I'm in more of the Latin scene. That's
by the way, I don't know if you knew. Just want to give a shout out. Did you know the drummer Ramon Banda, the Banda brothers? Old school.
Super
well, yeah. Ramon grew up with Poncho Sanchez, and he was a prolific drummer with Cal Jader and Tony Banda, his brother. They played with Sheila and all those cats.
Okay,
he passed away, but I mean, like, and so rest in peace, Ramon. But when you say Latin, are you talking about how did you learn the Juan code?
No, I'm not talking about that kind of Latin.
Okay, so we need to, because
I'm talking about if you want to put it in a very in a very
lay.
It's very black and white and not a very hip kind of way, because you can't really put a language to music, but it's the lyrics are in Spanish, the music is in English, if you will. It's like the music is drawing from like that Anglo sensibility, and it doesn't have a lot of the Latin flavor in it, right?
What's the Anglo sensibility?
Well, I mean, like what your influences are. Like, I was playing with a cat that, I mean, although he has a lot of Latin stuff in his songbook, he also, like, when we're playing, it, can go from Bitches Brew to like, to Soundgarden, and it just, like, so there's Latin rock or Spanish rock, which doesn't mean that it has and I think Spanish rock is a better nomenclature, because it really zeroes in on the fact that it's rock music as we know it, with Spanish as the language that it's presented in. And I get to do a lot of that stuff because of the fact that I have I grew up on my parents' record collection, which was, even though I was in Mexico, I was listening to their stuff. So I have the sensibilities, the musical sensibility of somebody who was brought up on that kind of music, but I know the language, so I'm easy to communicate with in the situations, It's like I'm easy to travel with and I'm easy to communicate with, because it's like I don't have to worry about translating everything for me, like when we're in South America. You don't have to worry about, like, like trying to, like, oh, I have to translate this idea I have in Spanish into English to let this dude know what I'm thinking. It's like, it's like, boom, it's like right there.
Have you played in a setting like where there's no traditional trap set, where it's just timbales and congas and things like that?
I have, yes.
How does that differ from, I mean, in some ways, how does that differ from having a drum kit?
Well, I mean, it's it's the sum of all of those parts, right? And like everyone's limbs are controlled by a different person, so there's a slightly different groove.
Wow, tremendous.
That are the way everyone interprets the groove is, even if you're playing like something that everybody knows, everyone is approaching it with their own feel. So that's why you get like this. That's why I love bands actually with two drummers.
Double drums, man.
Double drums
everywhere.
is so sick because
Sick.
Like,
it's tribal. It gets tribal after a while.
Yeah, like Time Out of Mind is one of my favorite albums because it's you have Brian Blade just doing like his like super swinging like just decorative, amazing, beautiful drumming, and then you have Keltner laying it down together, and it's like the way they converse and the way that the musicians then like what I was talking about earlier, the melodic musicians have such a rich tapestry to pull from and a bunch of different little things that they can hone in on so they can find a place to sit in the mix where they're not getting in the way of other people, and you're not just like a monolith just coming at the music. So yeah, it's I think it's a super cool vibe when you have at least two percussion. Two people interpreting.
Yeah, because then there's polyrhythms then at that point,
There's polyrhythms. There's
cross
pull,
rhythms. Yeah.
There's sag. There's and there's conversation too because drummers like nothing more than playing. Like if you told drummers like hey we just got rid of everyone else and it's only a drummer's world, they would be so freaking happy because they love playing with each other. They love what they get off of like doing that conversational rhythm,
vibration. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that's the key is not so much that it's a broken down kit that everyone gets to build one thing out of. It's the fact that when you have more than one and if you have a rhythm section and the melodic section that approach the music as rhythm players, then you're going to always get that. Like like Little Feat you were talking about. Like I mean that's the perfect example of a band that's like they go for the rhythm and then everything else falls into place after that.
Yeah, well, what's funny is I've heard from Tackett enough stories that Richie Hayward used to drive Lowell nuts because Lowell would have these, he would actually dance the parts out for Gradney and Richie, and then when they would hit, Richie would do his own thing, and it would drive him absolutely over the edge.
Yeah.
But Richie knew what he was doing. Before we wrap, Josh, and it's really been an honor.
Same here.
Where do you want to grow the most as a musician and as a human being?
Well, I mean, as a
combine the two. I'm just saying, where do you see a need for growth?
I really think that I need to sing more because one thing that I used to do, talking about transcending earlier, is I would sing everything I played in every situation I did it, and I stopped doing that at some point just because I kind of felt inhibited maybe by what the task was. The task wasn't for me to transcend as much as me to deliver a very specific product to the person I was working with, right? And I think what is going to get me back to that is to conquer my horrible stage fright of being a singer, a front person. Not that I want to go out and be a front person, but I want to be able to emote and to share what's inside me without having to translate it into this and then out to that. So I think that is the area of growth, and I think really saying no to a lot of gigs in the quest to really play exactly what I want when I want it. I'm not young anymore. I'm not you're always as young as you feel, right? But I think that a pro musician can spend a lot of time playing music either that is not theirs or that they don't like.
Wanking music.
Well, I mean, no,
I'm kidding. I mean, I know what you're saying. I dig. You want to do what you want to do.
Yeah, and it's like
you're at a point in your career where you can do that.
Yeah, and I just want to connect with the people who are like on the same wavelength as me, and work more towards those types of things, and not chase the dollar through music, because I always find that when you get into that mode of you're just chasing the dollar through music, then your output becomes stifled because it becomes dependent on what you can make money at, and I think it's more about sharing with the cats that I want to share music with, because we're on the same page and we're enjoying it. And I think that's going to give me a lot of personal growth in the process.
Would you consider singing a tune right now?
No.
All right. Well, listen, let me know when you start singing again, man. It's going to be good to get stuff out of your system, and high honor.
I don't have it completely worked up yet.
You never will.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. But I will get to
I
the
dig.
point where I feel that comfortable with it. Yeah.
High honor to be with you, brother.
Yeah, you too, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's the Jake Feinberg Show. See you later.